Yeah, Relic Media is a new podcast streaming service. There's several different podcasts for like different type of interests you may have. If you have a new podcast, you want to get a larger audience, hit us up or go to Relic Media directly, and maybe we can get you part of the Relic Media family.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me on the podcast, guys. I just want to go ahead and mention, even though, we all have our own opinions and everything, I understand that it's all love and just you guys even just appreciating, and I appreciate you guys having me on the show. But as far as prisons, I just do feel like they do serve a purpose in our society, in terms of just being there to instill trust within our community to know that there is a place for bad people to go. Whether or not there's prison reform or not, I just do believe that the idea of the prison system existing is a good deterrent in terms of just providing a resource for those that we deem as, how would I say, not fit for our community. Um, and some of those people are just like rapists and sexual abusers. And even though there's a lot that ties into the people that are in our prison system now that might not be there for a good legal reason or a legal reason, I do feel that way, that prisons are a great thing for our community, despite the system that it's in right now. Me personally, I do believe in the death penalty. I believe up to a certain extent, an eye for an eye. Um, Generally speaking, if you can deem anything as just like being extremely mischievous or um, extremely rogue in terms of just what the consequences or the action of the person has done something, then I believe that, an eye for an eye is what I see as possible. In terms of just having the person live through every single day and just having them be alive, I don't agree with, because as much as it is our tax money that's being pondered into just having them being fed and kept into these systems, I just believe that getting rid of them would be an also bigger deterrent to those that might want to do that kind of illegalness or those kinds of activities in the future. I know right now there's no studies that kind of prove it, but for me to know that if I go in and there's a chance that if I try to do a mass shooting, I'm probably going to die um, being appointed by a judge rather than being able to, you know, die on the front lines in a mass shooting. Yeah, I think that's a great question. I believe that having the prison systems around are great deterrents. Maybe not for like the reform aspect in terms of how we rehabilitate our prisoners to come back into the real world. But in life, I do believe that there's consequences to our actions. So I feel like if we didn't have these prison systems around, I feel like the world would be a lot crazier than it actually already is. And as far as the second part to your question, in terms of just having the death penalty as a deterrent, um, I do believe that too, just because of the fact that if you're willing to do all these crazy things to these people that are harmless, or just even people that are just going about their day, and you feel like you're in the right to just get over on them, I believe that there is a chance for you to be decided by the people that you should die. Hmm. Never really thought about it too much in terms of just having the purpose of the death penalty, but as far as what I can assume, I believe that the death penalty is, again, just a deterrent to take lives, in terms of just having um, an example made, like, hey, if you're gonna rape 50 kids and
Hey, one second. Hey Fasad, did you see that comment? They said you can't hear you.
oh, is it, you guys can't hear me?
No, not you. You're fine. Yeah.
Okay, my bad, guys, my bad. um but I think I do believe it's just a deterrent. Again, if you want to just rape 50 kids and be like one of those serial killers, like, I believe your life deserves to die rather than just live how many years or how many lives they give you to just be alive in prison.
Gotcha. So, what do you think about? So maybe the purpose wasn't. Maybe I think you misunderstood the point of the question. Like, what do you think the goal of capital punishment ought to be? So, like, there's a problem, and you think capital punishment is the answer, right? So, like, what is this supposed to solve? Is it, you
Hmm.
think it's supposed to reduce crime? Hold on one
I think
second.
that's a I think that's a great question. Like, in terms of what it's supposed to solve,
Yeah,
I think
like,
it solves the fact that they won't have them in our system or be alive, for those victims to feel like, all right, that my perpetrator out there is still out there being alive. It kind of I feel like if I were to kind of go through some of those traumatizing moments, and
mhm.
me being violated and knowing that person is still out there, is still alive, I probably wouldn't be able to sleep at night, even the fact that they're in a jail system. And that might
So
not answer your question, but then again, that kind of alludes to just me not really speaking about it as much.
how about this? So, like, I would say the goal of the criminal justice system in general is to promote the well-being of society. Would you disagree?
No, I think that's generally the simpler way of me explaining it.
Yeah.
Um,
So the death penalty in a way would be supposed to do that, right?
yeah, I would agree. And I
So
think that's what my words can definitely be
gotcha.
explained as.
Just wanted to make sure. So, like, have you looked at some of the scientific studies surrounding the death penalty?
No, but you can definitely go ahead and educate me.
Sure. So, like, every single study that I've found ever that I saw, that there's actually negative correlation between declining crime rates and the death penalty. So, like, as in the states where the death penalty is enacted, they actually experience more crime over the past 10 years than the states where there was no death penalty.
Hmm.
Yeah, there's a
And they
pretty effective study that shows that like states that have the death penalty versus the states that don't have the death penalty, it there's no decrease in crime. So it doesn't really work as a, at least specifically the death penalty doesn't work as a deterrent.
hmm, do they? That's what it says scientifically, that the death
Well,
penalty
so
doesn't actually occur as a deterrent.
well,
Yeah,
so well,
well,
not necessarily that it's not a deterrent. At least I don't want to speak for side, but from what I saw with the studies, that there's a negative correlation. So it's not saying it isn't acting as a deterrent, but actually, well, in states where they have the death penalty, there's actually increased in crime. Well,
Wow.
there's not a decrease. Where states where there is no death penalty, they actually saw less crime. But there is one study I can point you to. I'd have to be able to find. I couldn't quote it during the show, but it's in the criminal case law book I have in my living room actually. And they were asking criminals what was the number one deterrent for you committing a crime, and actually the death penalty was like didn't come up at all. Somewhere along the list was like, but towards the bottom was getting caught by the police and going to prison. The number one deterrent was actually just the victim being armed. But
Really?
mhm,
Not even based on the consequences of their actions, just more of just them going through the action itself is the
yeah,
biggest deterrent himself.
yeah.
Yeah,
You
I
go in to
mean,
rob
the
a bank,
potential
there's
of
not.
getting injured or
Yeah,
harmed or killed in the process of, like you're just trying to, like let's say hypothetically you got somebody trying to snatch a purse and all of a sudden you're getting shot over it. Like thinking about that is more deterring than even being caught by the police. Because like let's say you steal a purse, unless there's like 20 bands in that thing, right? It's probably going to be petty theft at worst, right? So like being caught by the police may end up in jail time. Depends on the judge and probably going through this whole long list of things that you'd have to consider. But like, let's say you steal a purse and that person has a gun. Well, getting shot's way worse than the legal procedures for petty theft, at least in my opinion.
yeah.
Hmm.
And YouTube,
And,
if
and
you can give me an update, I think you can hear me now. I tried doing a little self-test, but we should be back in business.
Wow. That definitely is news to me. Understand this that we're, we're definitely basing some of our opinions here and you guys are presenting a lot of the facts, but in terms of how I feel though, the deterrent itself is a lot more scarier to know that like, all right, I'm going to be sent away and then ultimately someone's going to make the deciding factor that I'm going to die based on my actions. Not just me actually going through the crime itself before I even get to that point being the most deterring part. I think us as humans, I think like we're very much one, two, three, go. So as far as anything just popping up, if you have a goal and a mission to kind of do something, I think you're just gonna get it done, rather than just feeling like, oh, like I don't know if someone's gonna rob me or try to fight back. Or I feel like when most people are trying to steal and stuff, most people are just kind of let them have it.
well, that depends on where you are. So I can show you cases like that happen on a daily basis, where somebody will break into a home or try to rob somebody, try to kidnap somebody, and then the perp winds up getting shot. Like I see stuff like that on Facebook like all the time, and so I'm not saying that it happens, that this is more likely to happen than actually going to prison. I was just
Right.
saying, like in the survey that I was reading in this criminal case law book, and it's a really old survey, by the way, but they were saying that that's what most criminals, well, that's what most perpetrators actually fear. Whether or not that fear is rational or not, I'm not saying that. I'm just saying that
Hmm.
that's just
Like
that
based on
seems
the
to be,
studies.
yeah, that seems to be the number one deterrent. I mean, and I could see, I could see some sense in that. I mean, just think about, let's say if I'm going to go kill a bunch of people, right? I want to be a mass murderer. Well, where am I going to go? I'm probably gonna go somewhere where people lack the ability to fight back, right? So like I'm not gonna run into a gun club and start blasting people, right? Because they're gonna shoot back at me. Like I'm not gonna go into a police station. I'm gonna go somewhere where they're unlikely to be able to fight back, like a school, probably a mall where no guns are allowed or anything like that. I'm not trying to turn this into like a gun discussion, but
Yeah, nor are you
I
trying to
just see
write a
that has some merit.
manifesto here. I can definitely understand what you're talking about. Um,
I like to mention. So earlier you hadn't mentioned. You said the eye for an eye. Like
oh
what?
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So,
man.
well, why is that important? And how literal, like, would you go? Are you going to take that? So, because like
Yeah,
I know
I think.
in the Bible when they refer to it, they were pretty much saying the same punishment happens to you that whatever injury that you cause the other person. So if I'm chopping an axe or something, and then the head of the axe flies off and cut off your arm, then my arm's gonna be cut off, whether it was intentional or not.
Mm,
So how literal? Are you just using that as a figure of speech or
no, I definitely am using it as a figure of speech rather than
okay?
just saying like, if you rape someone, someone's gonna rape you. Like
Hmm.
I'm not trying to have it being like that. But in terms of just having the criminal punishment, I think the amount of trauma that someone goes through is should be as more punishable to just dying, whether or not you. And again, I think I bring it up to the topic of just raping somebody because I feel like that is like a very traumatic crime to do to somebody
Hmm.
because you're like unwillingly that person's unwillingly going through physical and mental trauma with you. Um, so I think like a person like that, a person who rapes somebody just sitting in jail is not going to really ever affect them, whether or not they're going to want to die um, in the action. But I think someone having to point them today, like, hey, you're going to know if you're a serial rapist, like you're going to die. Like the court is going to overturn and a lot of make those decisions where you're just going to receive the death penalty.
Do you think that brings some sort of closure to the families
I
by having
definitely
them?
do. I
Okay.
definitely do. And again, I mentioned it earlier, right? Like a lot of those victims, if I were to go to a certain action, right, where someone has taken or done that to somebody that I
Hmm.
to know that that person is still out there alive, regardless if they're in a prison or they're in a cell locked up 24 hours a day by themselves, just to know that they're still alive, probably wouldn't bring me mental clarity to know whether or not um, you know, because there's a chance, right? Or one of these, you hear about cases all the time that gets overturned because lack of evidence or things that are wouldn't be as provable, but it's like that person's in the wrong and they
Hmm.
get free after 25, 40 years, and it's like those families and those people that go through that sense of trauma. Um,
So what about this? So as I hope you would agree, the criminal justice system isn't perfect. Sometimes bad
mhm.
people get away. Sometimes good people get wrongly in prison.
Yes,
So
yes, yes, we can definitely
so
agree.
so and so we know even with death row cases, like mistakes happen. So there's always going to be friendly fire, right? How many innocent people are you willing to execute to get the bad guy?
That's a great fucking question. Holy shit! How many innocent people am I willing just to get the bad guy?
Yeah.
And I think I wouldn't put a number to that. I think a lot of it, I only bring up again a certain amount of people, like the Boston Marathon bomber, right?
Hmm.
Like, there's so many times this guy has awaited trial in order to undergo the death penalty. Actually, I'm not even sure. For I don't think Massachusetts has the death penalty.
No, they
What was
don't.
Probably
it?
not. They're pretty
They
liberal.
don't.
they're,
They
Yeah.
don't.
yeah, they're pretty
Yeah. Yeah.
conservative when it comes to protection of criminals, if that makes
Yeah. You probably have
sense.
to go down to like Texas, Mississippi, stuff like that. Some of those
Right,
backwoods
right. But
kind of
I
states.
remember again. I
No
remember
offense
kind of
if you're from
growing up.
Mississippi.
I kind of remember growing up
Some
like
offense.
some people were just saying like, why isn't this guy receive the death penalty? Even me knowing that like, all right, like this guy has proven um time and time and the evidence just shows up that he's the bomber. Um in terms of how many
So
lives I want to take,
yeah, so let's say
that's
we
not too
got the
many.
bomber with
Mhm.
the bomber, right? We know he did
Mhm.
it, right? So we know this bomber is the bad guy, right? We caught
Right.
him.
Yeah.
In order to execute him, we have to implement the death
Oh,
penalty,
like a
right?
certain amount of people before we get him.
Well, no, here's the thing. Like, so in order to execute him, we first have to implement the death penalty. And we know with the death penalty, we know there's also going to be innocent people who are going to be killed as well.
Mm.
So that's what I'm asking. So, like,
Right.
Oh,
we,
right, right.
yeah,
Because
Because
we
right?
we
implement the death
convicting.
penalty, there might be an
Yes.
innocent person sitting on death row that will also get killed.
Yeah, not
Right,
might be,
right.
not might be. I mean,
No,
statistically,
he
that
will
is
be. Yeah.
exactly what happens. So,
Right, exactly.
So would you kill? So how about this? So like, in order to get 10 bad guys, 10 people who, like, I'm talking about child murderers, child rapists, etc. Like, in order to get um 10 bad ones, would you
There's
kill a good?
30 innocent people.
I was gonna say just a good man, one good man.
One
Like,
good man.
yeah,
Holy shit.
yeah, just one good man. He good man, raises family, kids love him, work hard, loves his community and everything. Would you kill that one innocent man to get rid of these 10 horrible people?
And you said the one innocent man is wrongfully convicted?
Yeah, just one. It's just one. And you get 10 bad people.
Probably not.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't either.
I don't
wouldn't either.
think I would. I think, again, with that ratio, I thought you were gonna go the other way. I thought you said, all right,
No.
if 10 bad people, right,
hmm
and there's 30 good people that are awaiting death row, probably not. But even just down to one person, that now to think about it when you explain it that way, definitely
Yeah.
wouldn't. But again,
All
that
right.
comes down to our system in terms of how we're convicting our criminals.
Sure. So I think this is an excellent time to jump into a few questions that we have in the comments. If you don't
Yeah.
mind addressing them, or if you, M and or Inner Movement would like us to address them accordingly, we can. It says, curious, do people deserve second, third chances, etc.? So I assume that's kind of addressed towards people that got, for instance, arrested and then they went through the prison system. Now they're back out. Do they deserve a second and or third chance?
Right.
Kind of like, what's the policy there?
Oh yeah. You guys said you wanna. Do you guys want to base it off my answer, or you guys kind of already know? Or...
Yeah, just kind of spitballing your opinion here. I mean.
Oh yeah. I think second and third chances are at this point. I do believe in, obviously, second and third chances, but in terms of like the fourth and the fifth chance, if you're a person that's constantly being cycled back through the prison system, that means we're not doing a good choice. We're not making the best decisions in terms of how we're rehabilitating these people, and in terms of how they're appearing back into the system. So as far as like 1, 2, 3 strikes, you're out, I definitely agree. But in terms of like the fourth and the fifth time, how many times does someone have to go back into jail?
When you said 3 strikes, you're out. So you mean like life in prison?
Maybe harsher, more of like harsher punishments.
Okay, so
rather than just immediate life.
So what if on 3 different occasions I get caught stealing a tuna sandwich? Like, are you gonna like give me like 20 years eventually for the third tuna sandwich?
Or maybe the fifth tuna sandwich.
Maybe the fifth tuna sandwich.
Yeah,
no, but then it wouldn't be a tuna sandwich then. I think honestly, there's laws that are implemented in terms of just the amount of theft that's being caught. Don't a lot of those laws, they don't allow a certain amount for them to even just investigate it.
Well, I mean, obviously,
I understand you're bringing up an
petty
example,
theft versus
but I'm
like
just
grand
asking.
theft.
Yeah.
So like the 3 strikes outlaw. And if I'm not mistaken, that was ruled unconstitutional, but it applied to felonies. Whereas you could
really
you'd have to commit grand theft, which would be
so
excess of $25,000 in most states.
Yeah, so if you commit 3 felonies, then the third one, no matter how bad it is, you're just getting life. Which it got stupid because people was getting life for stealing TVs and stuff.
Yeah. So. Right. And a lot of those people are just victims within our community growing up with inequality to wealth. Yeah, and I could definitely understand that. And again, I think when it comes down to our system and how we're rehabilitating some of these people that are coming in and out of the prison system, I have family members that have been in and out of jail, and they've learning that it's definitely more than just a slap on the wrist each time, but they're not being rehabilitated properly. They're always constantly being cycled back into the same things that got them into jail in the first place. So in terms of just them being a bigger problem to our community, I definitely understand why they don't really care so much, because they're so focused on what's in front of them right now and just getting it in by any means. But no, as far as the like second and third time going to jail, obviously for certain things like that, I don't agree. Like, you shouldn't have to go to jail for life for stealing 4 tuna sandwiches, but there definitely should be something implemented in terms of just having these greater consequences so that we could be more of a deterrent.
I think about this. So Inner Movement, he said that in my belief, the point of punishment should be the regeneration of character in conformity to societal norms. If it is not to this end, then it's a failed system. And so I guess this kind of gets to like the rehabilitation theory of criminal justice.
Exactly.
So, because maybe
Yeah.
so if you keep stealing tuna sandwiches, maybe we ought to teach you why it's wrong not to steal tuna sandwiches instead of like giving you some sort of draconian punishment for it. So I that kind of gets to what you were talking about earlier.
Yeah, I
He
think that's a
says,
great point. Rehabilitation of character, that definitely gets more
and he said an outcast system
spotlight.
may be the closest to fulfill this end. I get the impression that Inner Movement is a anarcho-capitalist because that is I am an anarcho-capitalist, and that's how we recommend criminal justice ought to be done. No prisons, we outcast. You just ostracize. Let's run through these questions real quick so we get back to the convo.
Yeah.
He said, "What about 1,000 bad people for one good one?" So when I was asking you earlier about would you kill one bad person
Just
to get 10 bad
1 for
ones?
10.
Yeah,
Now it's 1,000 for one.
yeah, you get
Yeah.
1,000 bad guys.
Oh man, you guys are killing me, man.
Yeah.
Literally.
If there's any
literally
number
killing
we
me.
could put there, like a 10,000 to 1, 100,000 to 1.
Yeah,
would
and
it- would it
let's
be
make
worth it?
let's make this personal. Like
No, yeah.
Facade. All you gotta do is kill Facade. You get 1,000. You get 1,000 bad guys.
I might take that up though. For real.
So, 'cause
No, but again, just seriously speaking, in terms of just the 1,000 to 1, obviously that being that dramatic. Again, it comes down to our system, right? In terms of who we're convicting
Mhm.
wrongfully, in terms of just having these people in our system just to be placed there. I understand that there is a lot of racial injustice in terms of our people being imprisoned, which is kind of messed up because now it's like we're seeing a lot more exposure to a lot of the things that are going on. But in terms of 1,000 to 1, no, I can't really make that decision for that. But
So
in
I
terms
think
of
where
just
the
on a case
question's
by case,
ultimately going to go is there any number of bad people in which you would sacrifice one good person?
no, there isn't, and I think that's the simpler answer. There is no amount of good people I would sacrifice for as many bad people. I think the ultimate sacrifice I'd probably take is that there was no bad in life in general. I'd probably sacrifice myself.
Gotcha. So how about this? So here's the thing: when we're
Yeah,
talking
them
about
killing
how
me in
many
the
good,
comments.
yeah. Just saw his comment. 1,000 Hitlers.
Holy shit! Oh, all right.
No, okay. He's
Yeah, I
trolling.
think that's a
He's-
joke.
He's
Alright.
trolling. He's
All
trolling.
right,
That's just a troll.
because now
Yeah.
you guys, this is some kind of fucking mental warfare
No,
going
no.
on right here with my own character. This is insane.
That was
No,
just a
he's
joke.
trolling. He's
But
trolling.
I think we should
I'll-
go back to M's where it
Alright.
says, "What about a drug addict?" So I think that's a good example of like a question for like real prison reform, or at least like the idea concept of prison. So somebody
Yeah.
that's like addicted to drugs or has had problems abusing, like with drug abuse or alcohol abuse in the past, in which they've wound up
Right.
in jail and or prison, and then got clean for a while because they didn't have access to it, and then wound up back in prison. Like,
Mhm.
is there still like a 3 strikes law, or do you think there should be harsher punishments each time they go back, or like where do you stand on that?
That's a great question. Whoever asked that, and again, I
Aside.
appreciate how a lot more things are here to be more respectful to others' opinions. I've never joined any of this stuff before, but definitely appreciate getting out of my comfort zone and just having these questions being asked.
I made sure we try not to trample you, but I'd like to just
No,
kinda get
no.
your opinion
No,
and
you-
like ask
no,
questions.
yeah.
And
So that question right there, again, I think it comes down to a case by case basis. I don't think a person that is going through, you know, drug issues or alcohol issues, should be in the same kind of prison system as certain criminals that are either killing people or like serial killers. Even though they definitely get put into the same general population in terms of just having them there. But in terms of a 3 strike law, I think it comes down to what are we doing within our communities to like prevent these issues from happening, rather than just having them being in and out of the jail system. So that way we just don't again, it sucks because you see it every day, and a lot of those people nobody grows up and just wants to be an alcoholic that's going in and out of the jail system,
Yeah.
or a druggie that's going in and out of the jail system. But again, in terms of the people that's providing those drugs or the people that are doing those things to our people in our community, then I think that becomes the bigger question is how we handle those problems rather than it actually getting into the hands of our people.
I, I wanted to take this back. So now we're done with the comments. I wanted to take this back to the death penalty for a second because I
Yeah,
was when I was talking about like how many people, how many good men would you kill to get the bad ones? Like those are all hypothetical scenarios. So let me give you like the actual number. It
sure.
says so from the latest numbers that we have, the most accurate numbers that we have, is actually the amount of innocent people convicted on death row is about 4%. So that means so for every 96 people that of bad guys we're getting 4 good people, or at least innocent people. So
For
that
innocent people that are wrongfully convicted.
yes, for every 96. So like that's the thing. So a, a capital punishments, they're notoriously hard cases. They're very expensive. A lot of times attorneys aren't going to pursue them unless they're not going to pursue the death penalty unless they got like a rock solid case. So a lot of times if you're convicted, you probably did it. However, in over 4% of the cases that this happens, they're actually innocent. And so that is the ratio you'd be dealing with. Or you ask yourself, are you willing, not just you, because you already said no, but like if you're listening, ask yourself, like, are you willing to kill 96 bad people if it also means you have to kill 4 good people? And try to be personal with it. Think like the 4 of like your best friends. Are you willing to kill them to get these 96 people? If the answer is no, then I think that kind of answers where you should stand on the death penalty.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
just to piggyback that a little bit, to take it, not to say like obviously you're obviously not the one pulling the trigger here, but just keep in mind these 4 innocent people are 4 innocent people with their own friends and family. So although it's not you pulling the trigger, yeah, genuinely put yourself in the shoes of what if 4 people that you know personally are genuinely wrongfully convicted of a crime and sitting on death row? Would you want the death penalty at that in that state in which this is happening? And if the answer is no, like even if it means getting 96 people permanently off of the prison system and out of the streets where they can't continue to do harm, is it worth those 4 innocent people dying?
Have you Cap? Have you looked into like the cost of your average death penalty case?
In terms of just the victim or the convicted fighting it, or like the U.S.
Well,
in terms of just going to
just
trial with it.
the amount of money that is actually costing the public.
No, I can only assume it could be just as much as how we're paying into everything else.
Yeah, it's actually it's like almost twice as much. So like your average, like your average non-death penalty cases is about 740K. That's how much the taxpayers are costing for. We're talking about representation, bailiffs. I mean, literally everything that goes into a trial. So
Right.
for death penalty, it's over 1.2 million per case. Because so not that you were making this argument, but I often hear the argument that somehow the death penalty saves us money because you get to kill them and you don't have to feed them and all that kind of stuff. Like that's just total nonsense. That's a very myopic way to look at it.
Mm.
Also very inhumane, like to kill people to save money, as if that's a moral argument too. But it's also just inaccurate that the death penalty saves money. It is actually very expensive, and it uses up resources because if someone is seeking to death penalty, like it takes away all the bargaining chips that the government would have, right? So let's say if you're seeking a non-death penalty, we could say, hey, if you just admit to this, if you go ahead and plead guilty, we'll lighten the punishment. Also, if you give us some more names, then of other people who are involved, we might lighten it even more. Like the death
Mm.
penalty completely takes away all of that,
Mm.
right? So they have no bargaining chips. So that means the the person on trial is going to do everything he can to obstruct and delay the process. So every sort of appeal, like no matter how trivial, is going to go through. So that's a lot of times that's why it's taken not just years but like decades for people to be executed. I think remember Stan Tookie Williams, the guy who founded the Crips. He was
Yeah.
a lot of people think he was wrongly convicted, but when he was executed, this happened in what, like 2007, 2008, and it was for a crime that he supposedly committed in the 70s. You know, so like
Yeah.
it is not a.
I mean, like you have the case that went on for years and years and years, and then you have 30 plus years sitting in prison on death row, which right now, as of 2022, I looked at the stats earlier this year. On average, it's about $31,000 a year, and then the like added cost of the actual death penalty being carried out, which involves getting multiple medical doctors, additional security, like other stuff involved on top of the chemical compound, the actual cost to the like prison that goes into putting all this together, having medical professionals sign off on the issuing, having medical professionals sign off on the actual death itself, gets like prohibitively expensive. Like, not saying that's the reason you should oppose the death penalty, but if the reason you're saying the death penalty, if anyone's listening or anyone that like catches the episode, if the reason you're saying the death penalty is good is because it saves money because you don't have to pay the $31,000 a year, you just don't understand how the system works, because it costs more to get that chemical compound than it would to keep them in prison for 25 years.
Or life.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Also, you probably are keeping them in 25 years regardless.
Yeah, you
It's
keep
like-
them
Right.
there
it's a
either
very
way,
slow
and then
process.
you're spending more than 25 years of prison worth to make that one instance happen.
Right. So again, I know you didn't say that. I alluded to it earlier, but I did mention, like, instead of having the victims' families know that that person's alive, now with all the information that you guys are sharing, with me knowing that it costs way much more to our just us paying into that, it definitely changes a lot of their perspective. I never want
Hold
to
on
make
one
it
second,
seem like,
Cap.
yeah, you know what,
Hey,
we're gonna
Cap-
save money.
Hey, Cap, you're kind of breaking up. Hey, Facade, is he
Yeah.
breaking up to you?
Yeah,
Oh.
a little bit. That was my bad. I think I turned my camera off. I'm having a little bit of internet connectivity
Oh.
again, but
Okay.
it should be back.
Gotcha. Hey,
Cap,
Cap,
you still there?
All right, can you guys hear me a little bit better now? Yep, can you guys hear me a
Still a
little
little
bit better now?
scratchy. Still a
Yeah.
little bit scratchy, but we're okay. Keep
Yeah, we
on
can deal
trucking.
with it. Yeah, I'm sorry to interrupt. Go ahead and finish your point, Cap.
All right, you guys hear me now?
We
Hello?
can hear
Hello?
you. Yeah, we can hear you. It's just it's like it's coming a little unclear, but I can make out what you're saying.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Oh, that's way better. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah.
No, I think. All right, cool. No, you guys can hear me now.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yep.
you're good now.
Yep. Good.
Cool. No, again, now that with all the information that you guys are sharing, it definitely does change my perspective. About who are we convicting and like why are we convicting? Now, how would you guys feel in terms of those that are wrongly convicted? Do you feel we just kind of keep them in there for life, where they just slowly die out, or do you feel like their treatment and just them living through the same cycle or everything like that?
You mean people who are wrongly
It's
convicted?
bearable, or what do you guys think?
See, like people who are wrongly convicted who are sentenced to like life in prison or
Yes.
something like that. So
right.
so yeah, so like I mean, I'm definitely like up for I definitely support the appeal process and going back and reviewing cases, like like performing audits, making sure that all the due diligence was done. I'm all for
Right.
that.
Nothing racially motivated.
Yeah, and so and like here's the good part of that is that if someone's wrongly convicted when they're serving life, we can try to rectify that. We can get them out, and then try to make it up to them, right? So like try to give them like so much money for however time it's off. We can try. There are steps we can do to try to right the wrong that the criminal justice has done to them. The
Right.
the death penalty completely removes that.
Right, because that person is no longer here with us.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and so yeah, so I mean, it's unfortunate. There are. Hold on one second. Hey, Fasad, you know the intro screen is showing.
Yep, I'm working on something in the background.
Okay, gotcha. So so I mean, it's unfortunate that anybody would serve any amount of time for a crime that they didn't do, but
Mm,
at least the opportunity is there for us to rectify it, because it's far too often we find out on the news that we killed somebody who shouldn't have been killed. You know, that
mm,
is that is problematic, and especially, I mean, what about their family? Think about like a loved one, like I don't know, if brother, sister, or mom, whatever that's important to you. Imagine them being killed for something they didn't even do. Right? That's that's going to cause a lot, unrest with you, a lot of social unrest for the community. To
mm.
me, there's just no good in it.
Right, and like just being in there in the wrong place at the wrong time, pretty much.
Yeah,
Yeah.
there's all sorts of problems with it, and so I mean, and the only way for me to even, I think I would still have problems with it, but even if there was a case where they could show 100% of the time, we know, somehow you have some sort of omniscience and you know that a person you're going to kill is that actually did the crime, which is impossible. But um, for me, that's the only way that we should even be having a conversation about it. Otherwise, the fact
Right.
that we might kill innocent people is totally unacceptable. Like even
Mm,
like I used to work in law enforcement. I used to be a cop. You know, and here's one thing: we're trying to there's a bad guy in the crowd, right? And we need to take him out, right? Let's say he's an immediate threat to the public. Like, I'm not going to shoot through an innocent person to get him, right? Well,
mm.
well, that's like precisely what the death penalty is going to have to do.
Right, shoot
Yeah.
through those innocent people just to get to the one guy.
Yes. Yep.
Alright.
And, so,
Right,
and,
but
and
and again, I know there's a lot of intangibles to that because you guys are trained to make those decisions to not do so. So to the idea of just having the innocent people in like the crossfire of it all, I definitely understand what you guys mean. Like it's like, oh yeah, I can understand that.
yeah, and for me, and honestly, dude, regardless of being trained, it would never be acceptable to shoot through a person to kill a criminal. Like, hey, I had to put
Yeah.
this bad guy down, so I had to shoot through this kid, or had to shoot through somebody. Like, that would never be acceptable. That officer would go to jail. That that
Mm,
that never be acceptable.
mm.
And that's essentially what's going on here. They're having to shoot through four innocent people to get the bad 96.
Yeah, unless it turns into that movie Wanted where they can curve the bullet, then
Yeah.
and then I think that's where it just becomes acceptable. But even then, with a lot of the information that you guys are providing me, knowing that like, all right, it's a lot more expensive to just even have the death penalty than just having them just be in our system. But how do we discipline the system? Actually, how do we discipline those in the system that are actually wrongfully, or not wrongfully evicted, but actually in
Yeah,
there for their
the
wrongful
actual bad
doings?
guys.
Yeah, the
So
actual bad guys. What do you guys
yeah,
do? What do we do with them? Because we still want to be a deterrent. I know again, you guys said it earlier. It's not
yeah,
the
yeah.
prison's never really a deterrent. It's going through the action that makes it a deterrent. But
Hmm.
what do we do with them? Because if they're
So,
just sitting amongst regular population, then what are we supposed to do?
well, I don't. So yeah, so definitely, like, not even just people who guilty of some sort of capital crime, but if you shown that you're dangerous to the general population in prison, I mean, that definitely separates you from other people. And so, like, in most instances, that's going to also apply to people that's been convicted of capital crimes. So it stinks, right? It really sucks, because you think about like some person, like some serial killer who was like eating children or something crazy like that, right? And you're like, man, this guy deserves to die. And I totally agree. This guy deserves to die. However, you have to deal with the fact that you still have to get innocent people just to get this guy. And
Mm.
so that's what we talk about, like our priorities. What's more important, getting the bad guy or not getting the good guy? So,
Mm.
yeah, like for me, sending you to prison for something that you have not done, that's totally unacceptable. I and that's the side that I have to lean on. I have to err on the side of caution, and it really sucks. 'Cause like I said, I can definitely think of crimes that people have committed, and I could think, yeah, that person deserved to die. You know, I mean, I just watched the Jeffrey Dahmer documentary. You know, it's like, you know, that, yeah, they should have killed him. You know, but it's the problem with the collateral damage. So, I mean, I'm not for making placing a death penalty with some sort of like luxurious prison or anything. You know, just keep them in there. Um, despite how um despite how egregious it is, you know, to be executing, you know, 4 innocent people per 90 per 100, you know, still like the number's pretty high. So I mean, it's like they have a 90%, 96%, you know, um, accurate conviction rate. So, what was I going to go with
When
that?
when you said again, not going through the crossfire for those that are innocent,
Hmm.
are we talking about the person that's actually convicted for killing those innocent people, or just the people that are convicted but wrongfully convicted?
Well,
Like,
I
are we
was
thinking of the victims, or are we thinking of the person that's wrongfully convicted that's in that system that we're
well,
not going through the innocent for?
so like well, I mean, I'm considering both. So you think about this. So like getting the bad guy is easy, right? So think about like then like the medieval times, like getting the bad guy is easy, right? Um some guy comes and murder one of your family members, you go and kill his entire family. So you know you got at least one of them, right? Because whoever did it, you just killed everybody. So getting the bad guy is
Mm,
easy. If you think about the criminal justice system and due process, right? You think about how the Fourth, Fifth, Sixth Amendment work, right? You know, right to trial by jury, you know, right to presentation, all that kind of stuff, right? All of those are protections for the innocent. It's the main goal of the criminal justice system. For me, it if you really need to be making sure you don't get good people, that you don't convict the wrong guy. And
right,
that's why you have all of these uh sometimes tedious, sometimes like redundant, you know, protections just to stop people from being wrongfully convicted.
right.
That's what
Yeah,
the whole purpose is.
like I remember in high school, they did the serial podcast of that guy Adnan Syed. He was just recently freed.
Hmm.
I don't know if you're familiar with that case, but I don't know if he was awaiting death trial. But again, they didn't have enough information. He was just the wrong guy at the wrong time. And now after all these years, they finally set him free. And I again, I definitely appreciate the fact that you said that too. It's right. We can at least have them still alive to at least, even though we can't really make up the time that's spent in the prison system,
Hmm.
but at least them still being alive is a lot more better than them just having that decision for them to die innocently.
Definitely. I know Fasad, he wanted to bring up a point.
Institutionalized,
Hmm.
that they finally come back into how they once were, how many years ago before they were convicted, and then start rehabilitating some of those habits. Um, as far as doing anything personal, again, and I don't know too much, but I would want more improvements in terms of how we're educating our convicted felons and just
Well,
everybody in general, that if they are looking to seek out, um, you know, being a part of the freedom that they so-called have here in America, um, you know, we should do better in terms of just making sure that they don't have to go through a second or a third strike.
how about this? So, like, when we talk about, people coming out of prison and assimilating back into society, one of the biggest roadblocks they run into is their criminal record. They try
Mm,
to apply for jobs, and that big old F for felon pops up, right?
mm,
And then they see that and they immediately just push it away. So, like, on one end, this this severely hampers their ability to assimilate back in society, and like some of them
right.
are well qualified to do a task and they're no longer a risk, but this record is stopping them from being able to obtain that employment. On the
Mm,
other hand, you have to not everybody has um has been rehabilitated. Some people are going to be repeat offenders. For instance, like, let's say someone's like a sex offender and then they apply for work at like a elementary school. We don't want that. So we don't want to get rid of the record system at all. We do want employees to be able to know who they're hiring, but just the just the blanket discrimination that happens against felonies seems to be problematic. Like,
oh yeah.
how would you think? How would you fix that? Let's say I'm
Well,
getting out of prison and
mm,
I can't get a job. Like, what's a system you could think of that could help me?
I think probably, and again, everybody has their own decision on what the terms of what they want to do. But I know recently there's a good example, and again, it's just maybe one that's just been highlighted. But there was this guy, he came out of prison and he became an entrepreneur of his own, which was, I think it was like he had this motto of like prison fit or something like that, and it's just basically saying that like he's getting your like, you know how people come out of, you know, being institutionalized, and they're a lot more fit because that's all they have to, you know, that's pretty much what they can work on.
Yeah.
And when they're awaiting, you know, trial or just being around, they just want to get stronger, either to defend themselves or defend you know, others, or just, you know, for their own good, because it's the only thing that they can do. I think entrepreneurship would probably be the way that you would probably want them to take that route,
Hmm.
letting them know that, hey, like, you know, because of the actions that you've done. And again, I'm not
Well,
talking about those that are wrongfully convicted. Again,
mhm,
the people that are actually like sex offenders, or people that are, you know, those people that are like maybe like drug dealers or something like that. You
mhm.
teaching them other ways where they don't have to actually rely on being employed. And again, I know it comes down to really being difficult, because how do you even start being an entrepreneur,
Yeah, that's
coming
what I
out starting
say.
with
Like,
zero?
that takes money, especially coming out of prison. I might not have
Right.
any money to money. Like, right now, I need a job. You know what I'm saying?
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
so
Mhm.
I and M had brought up a point. He's talking about how most entrepreneurs fell through, and in a lot of cases that does end up happening, right?
And
Because
fell
like,
through, like fell
yeah,
through. What does he mean? Like in
like when you go
success,
out,
or just like
yeah, like most of the time, like, it's not. And I mean, and then a lot of times where it does work, it's not enough for to sustain them or their family. So, like, how about this? Like, not everybody has the ability to be an entrepreneur, right? This.
yes, and that's why I said earlier, everybody can make their own decision. I don't believe that everybody should. Like, there's even how would I say, a certain kind of stigma against a lot of people that I see now, where they're not promoting a 9 to 5 life. They're promoting this entrepreneur, but they don't understand that the 9 to 5ers are the ones that are actually supporting the entrepreneur. That's a
Hmm.
different debate. But again, I alluded to earlier, like, oh, what can we do? We could definitely teach entrepreneurship to those that, like, hey, like, once you get into the system, and that's maybe even protecting them in a sense where we offer certain people that were once institutionalized as alumni,
Hmm.
like letting them know, like, hey, this person has recently became successful off their business. Would you be interested in hiring a felon or something like that? And that's within the systems, because even though that there's not one or too many, it probably just takes one person to just look at another person and just be like, hey, I see in the good that you've definitely rehabilitated yourself to know that you've made a change.
Mm-hmm.
But again, it's hard to say because you said earlier those repeated offenders, and that's where it really gets kind of ticky tacky for me.
You know, 'cause what do you think about like tax breaks for companies that hire felons?
Tax breaks to hire convicted felons.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, for instance,
Hmm.
like get the government providing financial assistance to a company because they're hiring someone out of the prison system.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, yeah. I've I don't have an opinion on that. I know previously my parents would tell me that like they would have convicted felons um take a take like a shuttle to work, and they'll be there working amongst regular civilians. Um, in terms of them taking a tax break, I did not know that. I know that they take a tax break in terms of hiring people who are disabled or recently unemployed
Mm-hmm.
for so long. But in terms of the convicted felons, I have no opinion just because I didn't know that.
I, Obama, when he was in office, he implemented this policy, and I think it applied to only federal employees and federal contractors. It didn't apply to everywhere, but so he had a system where you the record wasn't hidden, but you wouldn't find out about the record until after you had an interview. So that way, the hiring team and HR, they can actually see you face to face, and they can see, oh, you're a great person, and they see that good impression that you left on them, and then after the fact, they'll find out about your record. So that way, they give a better overview of who you are versus boom, all they see is a name and a felony, and then they
Right,
immediately disregard you. So like
right.
that was Obama's idea. It wasn't widely implemented. A lot of people fought him on it. But like, what do you think about stuff like that?
I think that's definitely a better way to hire those that are rehabilitated and looking for us, like that second life or anything like that, or they just know that they've definitely done some time. They're looking for the change, and if we're not allowing them that change again, like if they just get assimilated back to how they used to be, then we can't fault them on that because we're not making changes within our system to allow them to make that change or let them to rehabilitate themselves afterwards. Um, but no, I think that's great. And now I can definitely see why there would have been an issue before. I did not know that. Again, I'm not a convicted felon, so I wouldn't
Mhm.
know whether or not I would have had to see my name pop up and then some of my charges and then my resume, and then versus them actually getting a sneak peek of who I am first and then seeing that afterwards. Um, I don't know if there's a statistic to show how much that has actually improved the hiring process for those convicted felons.
Yeah, it was implemented on a very small level. And I'm not sure if it's even still a thing because like I mean like Obama was like 7 years ago now. So
Hmm.
and I don't want to get too into politics, but Trump took down most of Obama's policy, so that probably is not even still a thing. I'm not sure if
Right.
Biden did anything afterwards,
So I want
but
to jump in real quick just because I want to be respectful of both of your times. I know I told Cap initially about an hour. Just kind of wanted to check in, see if you needed to go ahead and wrap up. And if so, if you want the last word, we can do that now. If you want to continue and we have a few more points that we want to discuss, we can do that as
Yeah,
well. We're going to leave it right in your hands.
no, I got like 15, 20 minutes left before my young one gets out of practice, so
okay.
we could definitely wrap this up just a little bit. But no, we could definitely tab this out for the next 15, 20 minutes or so.
All right, let's shoot for 7:17. That's like right in the middle.
Yeah.
7:17.
No,
Okay.
we could even shoot for like 7:25. Like that's
Okay.
all. I'm already parked waiting, so it's so
Got
I'm
you.
just waiting.
All right, fair enough. So just to kind of like not beat a dead horse or anything, but kind of continue talking about the possibility of like rehabilitation and alternatives to prison versus strict. I mean, as a part of prison reform, what are your thoughts on like mandated therapy and parole versus like a prison sentence to help keep people from that have like a record instead of getting that record that keeps them from that job, just getting something like parole and or mandated therapy. Do you think that's
Right.
a valuable alternative, or like what are your thoughts on something like that?
I think that's a great question. I think a lot of us actually value therapy a little bit different than most people. Like how I would value therapy might be a lot different than how you value therapy. But if I know that I'm going to be convicting a crime, and all I'm going to be doing is talking to a supervisor, and then would that therapist be the ultimate decision in terms of me going into jail, or
I
like if
think that could definitely be a part of it. Obviously, this is just a hypothetical, but I mean, just in the sense of, uh, basically not necessarily asking are they responsible for you going to jail, but depending on the severity of the crime, maybe not have you go to jail in general, but require mandated therapy to keep you from getting something like a felony charge. That way you
right,
can
and
just kind of maintain a status in society, which is what prison essentially removes you from, and kind of can take away people's livelihood in the process. So for instance, you get caught with enough marijuana in certain states for intent to distribute, now you have a felony charge. Well, that takes you and puts you on the felons list. It takes away substantial prison time, takes you away from your family. Most people would say that's a non-violent crime, especially if there was no intention to distribute. We're not talking about like gangsters and drug
mm,
deals. We're talking about somebody who just is a marijuana enthusiast that just happen to have more than the legal limit, right?
right.
So, what about
No,
something
I think
like therapy and or parole or mandates for people who commit nonviolent crimes instead of prison? Would you say what are your thoughts on like an alternative to something like that?
definitely a lot more humane in terms of just being able to know, like, hey, why are these people doing the things that they're doing, and we're providing a greater understanding, like, to them, rather than just kind of slapping them right on the wrist to say, like, hey, you're going straight to jail. Um, but then again, I do believe in it, and it might be very privileged of me to say so, but I do believe people know between what's right and wrong. Like, despite whether or not you know that, um, or however you grew up, and again, just my own opinion, I do believe that, like, what feels wrong in terms of what you're doing. But again, if the certain situations that you just brought up, or even the tuna sandwich thing earlier, like you said, maybe prison might not be the way for them. Maybe just their mandated therapy and parole, so that we can understand and provide a greater understanding to those. But on the serious cases, like a lot more serious cases, then I believe that, like, all right, like, you definitely know what's between what's right and wrong, in making those decisions. So maybe therapy might not be for that person. And again, it's just a case by case basis.
Gotcha. Yeah. So I mean, like, I know the whole thing is kind of like a cross between a little bit of prison reform backslash, you know, death penalty. I feel like we kind of covered death penalty to the extent that it can. So, in terms of prison reform, are there any ideas, concepts, or alternatives to the current prison system that you would like to see implemented?
Yeah, I know. I just recently had a family member come out of prison, so he kind of let me know what that prison reform process was for him. He let me know that he was able to take, like, certain workshop classes, um, to kind of keep him afloat, like even like some barber stuff, so that being a barber, and again, that kind of alludes to them just being an entrepreneur right when they get out, because that one you actually don't need, to start much in terms of just being employed by, that could be a lot of the under table work, and then you kind of work your way up into just being your own barber owner. But what he kind of alluded to me earlier is just saying, like, all right, when he was in prison, he would know that there were certain things that were being offered there, for people to take advantage of. Most people don't take advantage of it, and those are the people that are just complacent in being knowing that the life within prison's a lot better than the life that they have outside in the real world.
Gotcha. So, is there just to kind of reiterate, is there
Not
something
like a specific,
specific?
but like maybe
Yeah.
just entrepreneurship. And again, we kind of said it earlier, right? It's kind of hard with not having them have any money out the gate, but different, more workshop classes that provides them a trade. Um, One of the guys that I was just fixing one of my family's house, He was a convicted felon. He told me that he learned a lot of the electrical work was in the prison system, so that when he came out, he was offered an apprenticeship to work under somebody. That was someone pointed him in the right direction, but again, they just fell through. But I guess more workshops so that we can provide them, hey, this is how you might want to sustain your life afterwards when in terms of just being free. So that the way they're just not, I don't know, sitting at a wall. But again, I think it varies based on the criminal.
What do you think about opportunities in the military? Would you be opposed to that?
I wouldn't. I mean, obviously, and you can educate me more, just based on maybe experience or some kind of relative knowledge. But I wouldn't be opposed to that. Like enlisting those that are like, hey, would you take a lesser sentence to serve in our military? And again, I think it varies. I don't think sex offenders
yeah,
or like
exactly.
rapists are going into the military.
Exactly.
I understand that there's a very peculiar way in how our U.S. military wants to carry themselves. But in terms of those are like maybe like petty theft, right? Or maybe the ones that, they were alluding to earlier, just saying like the tuna sandwich or the crime with holding marijuana enthusiasts. If repeat offenders, I'd be like, hey, like, would you take a lesser sentence? And I wouldn't be opposed to that.
Yeah, like because I mean, I'm not a big fan of using the military as a punishment because we want a volunteer force, because like volunteer forces are shows to be better for different reasons. But like I'm definitely open for the opportunity for them to serve. I mean, with some caveats, right? So like if depending on the type of crime that was committed, right? And also it would vary depending on the type of job that you wanted in the military. So like, I mean, if you committed some job, I mean, if you committed some crime and it putting you in a specific MOS, like military occupational specialty. That if you're not familiar with Army terminology, that means like your specific job in the Army. But if their crime puts you at a specific type of risk within a certain MOS, maybe we can like say, hey, you don't qualify for this MOS, but you could still join the Army with this other job. Like, I'm all for stuff like that. I actually had I'm not gonna say his name, but I had a family member back in the 70s, 60s, was like 60s. He stole an ambulance, and to avoid going to prison, he actually enlisted in the Army and served in Vietnam and all that kind of stuff. So and it worked out for him. He did a fine job in it. So
yeah, there's actually an entire TV series dedicated to a very well-known previous hacker that was actually enlisted by the FBI instead of taking a prison sentence. So, I mean, I think there's definitely room for improvement in situations like that. I mean, they're rare, but as an alternative to things like prison, especially if it's like a nonviolent crime or if there's a situation in which like you're probably not at higher risk, to give them an opportunity to continue being a benefit to society instead of a burden on society. It seems like that might be a better, more valuable option, at least in my 2 cents on that.
God damn, stealing. I definitely agree. I know we said earlier, like, you definitely negotiate some of the things that they can be a part of. Would you still say that they deserve the same benefits as a volunteered person that would get, or
so
maybe those get lessened, or do you feel like they deserve the same adequate amount of pay, or are they getting paid? Like, what are we doing?
Yeah, I wouldn't mess with the pay. The only thing that I would look at, like I would consider the risk and with how much level of clearance you're giving them and how much harm they could do. Like for instance, like in my MOS, right, intel and electronic warfare. Like with my skills, I could do a lot of harm to the United States, right? So you want to be careful with who you would want to let in that MOS. Like we don't. Yeah. So like matter of fact, like my specific MOS, like you have to be a citizen, right? So and also they look at they looked at how many like tickets I had. It was like huge investigation for me to get the specific MOS that I am in the Army. So I mean it's
They were
it,
doing
it
like extensive background checks on
yeah
previous workplaces.
yeah exactly. And so depending on the type of crime you commit, maybe maybe you present a risk that the United States is not willing to accept. Like maybe, like for instance, like maybe if you say you stole a tuna sandwich or something like that, well, that could lend credence to your integrity, and maybe we don't want you dealing with sensitive systems, or classified information. But hey, if you wanted to be a truck driver, I don't see why you couldn't do that. So
Mm-hmm.
like, so it'd be very situational. I wouldn't have I wouldn't have like uh, a very rigid system where like if this happens, then you do that. Like I'd prefer to have some sort of board to try to look and evaluate the entirety of your character. Is there a
Mm,
pattern? What was the nature of the crime?
mm,
If you committed a financial crime, maybe we don't want you you know, doing something that involves accounting for the army, So like it just kind of varies. Maybe
right.
yeah. So like I would play it on a case by case basis, but like the main thing we want to look at the entirety of your character to see if you're suitable for this job. Well,
Mm,
unfortunately, right now, if you have a felony, like it's just the totally disqualified. You just can't go in the military whatsoever. You can go in with a misdemeanor, but that's going to limit the amount of jobs you could get. And I don't even think th- that necessarily is even a good thing. We need to evaluate the entirety of a person's character because people are complicated, man. Like sometimes stuff happens. It's a one-off incident that maybe had um an accident happened. And you if you winded up committing a crime just by not even knowing it. Like that's what I'm saying. Like situations is complicated, life is complicated, people are complicated. Having like a one size fits all rigid system, it's really gonna just it's gonna do more harm than good. I think in a lot of the cases. We try to be more flexible. The benefits of rigid systems that it ignore biases, right? Because if like what I was saying, like hey, like trying to leave it up to a board and evaluate the entirety of a character, it
mm,
allows people to be like prejudiced and stuff like that. And so,
right,
yeah,
right, right, right,
somebody
right.
asked
That
about
definitely makes a lot of sense.
a first DUI. No, I know somebody in the army. Well, I know several people in the army with very sensitive MOSs, and they've had um, not just one, but like several DUIs. So no, a DUI isn't necessarily a disqualifier. It's something that they would look at, but no, it's not a disqualifier.
Mm. I definitely, I definitely agree with that. Um, I think that system definitely would probably work. And again, now you told me that with felonies, they wouldn't allow them, but we could definitely offer them positions where, like you just said, the truck driver example, if you're fucking with somebody's money, we
Yeah.
probably wouldn't want you, in our accounting aspect. But I also do agree. I don't know. I would agree with the pay aspect though, because now we're just turning these people, like into, like how would I say, like if they're just doing the crime, and again, I guess it just varies on the kind of crime. But
Hmm.
now we're just turning them into these
But you
people,
objected to the pay. So like let's say like well, what type of crime would someone have to commit for you to say they would get paid less?
right? That'd probably be a great question. What kind of crime would I would?
Hmm.
Hmm, a crime.
Yeah, let's say like I mean let's try. I'm trying to be super generic. Like I stole a PlayStation 4. I burglarized somebody's home and stole a PlayStation 5 or something like that.
Right, like a home
Right.
invasion with a
Yeah.
weapon and everything like that.
Well, like,
Yeah,
they weren't even. I didn't even have a weapon. Like if you committed a violent crime, I would be very, I guess, more partial against you not being in the military, especially the
right,
Army and Marines, where everybody's a rifleman. Um,
right.
but were let's say like I broken somebody's home. I knew they weren't there, and I stole their PlayStation 4. Like, would
Hmm.
you? And I said, now I want to serve my country to try to help make up my debt. Would you, in that sense, would you try to take the diminish my pay? Or how about
No,
this? How about this? I don't mean to overtalk you, but
no, that's fine.
how about we diminish the pay for a little bit, right? To like, hey, we're gonna dock your pay for like maybe like a year or a year and a half to so you can repay your crime to society, and then after that, you'll get you'll get paid just like everybody else according to your pay grade.
Yeah, benefits, pension, everything like that. Yeah,
Yeah,
I could definitely. I think the docking aspect probably complements what I was thinking
but it wouldn't be
because I
permanent in your
it
sense.
wouldn't be permanent. Yes,
Okay.
I wasn't thinking permanent, but I also thinking like there's no way that we should just employ these people that are having these crimes
Hmm.
or even just committing these crimes to just getting paid right away, even though that the work as servicemen they do is rightfully so. Like I understand like the money that's being paid, or you might feel that it's being underpaid. I know that there's a lot of hard work that's being put into our military. Um, but to say that they kind of deserve the same pay for the person that volunteered into it right away, that'd be discouraging for me to know as me joining, like, hey, me joining the army or the military, knowing that the same guy that just convicted a crime is joining the same getting the same pay as me and not being docked, probably be definitely deterring for me to join, rather than just servicing my country. Because if I know I'm being treated the same way as he is,
Hmm.
then I'd be like, oh, all right. But then I also don't want to instill some kind of hierarchy towards me over him. But I think the docking aspect definitely complements what I was thinking.
I would say like in these cases like I wouldn't even make it public, like I would think it's probably best not to let other service members know why they're there, because I mean
Oh, right. Mm, yeah, I guess. Right? They'd be like, oh, what are you in for? And then like you just can't share that information.
yeah, yeah, I mean you just have some other story, but generally it's probably be a bad idea, because like for hazing and also I mean yeah I mean someone's telling me that they're not in here voluntarily but just here just to avoid going to prison, I'm definitely going to look at them a certain kind of way. I can just tell you this as someone who's in the army like right now, so
Right. That's what I was alluding to earlier. Is just like, how can I ever feel that like, all right, you're just in here because you're 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 just trying to get away from your punishment, or this is a part of your punishment, and I'm here just getting paid.
yeah.
Like
Yeah, I mean, I know it would be
they're deeming the work that I'm doing as a punishment.
yeah, I mean, I know it'd be infinitely more complex, but you could potentially even set up like a unit and or multiple units and or multiple MOSs specifically in mind for people trying to do that exact thing. Where you
Oh, what, like
have
set up like a suicide squad or something?
no,
Yeah.
no, I don't mean like that. I mean more like people that like for instance, like when the army goes out and does like road repair and stuff, and it's like states of emergency and stuff like that, where it's physical labor that I know for instance National Guard gets rolled in when you have like national emergencies for snow events and other stuff like that,
Right.
where it's going to be hard physical work anyway, and then you say, oh, we're going to doctor pay for a few years, or we're going to a year or 2 years or etc., and then we're going to basically allow you to move through 4 years, and then if you want to transition to a different MOS that's not specific for this, you could do
Hmm.
so after you've served that time.
No,
That
I
would
definitely
basically,
understand.
keeping them
And
not like from the grips of society, but at the same time, like basically giving them an opportunity to still progress as individuals and actually contribute to the society they live in.
no, I definitely agree. I think that's probably a better way to do it. Because again, just the way I kind of grew up and have aspect on life, I can definitely understand why that might be a better alternative. Um, and I understand it would definitely be a lot more complex because we're all speaking very hypothetically. But in terms of just everything overall, I've definitely learned a lot today. What else is there?
Oh,
wanted
I
to give
think
you the last word.
yeah, I was gonna say I think we're at the time now where essentially if there's anything you wanted to add, anything you wanted to plug, anything like that, the next couple minutes are yours. You're gonna have last word of the show. When you hang up, all we do is a little bit of tidy work, which means we're gonna talk about what the episode's gonna be about next week and thank everybody for watching. So
Yeah.
if you have anything you want to talk about, anything you want to say, get off your mind, you're more than welcome to do so now. The floor is yours.
Yeah, I just want to say thank you to both of you guys for having me on the show. I was talking to Facade. He was like, "Hey, we need one for the show," and him and I were already kind of talking about this earlier. And I appreciate how everybody, has been so really respectful, and just having just a conversation. Never,
Yep.
never at once did I ever feel like you guys were, attacking me or feeding. Like I was being fed to some wolves. I definitely appreciate the reciprocated good energy here in terms of just allowing me, and you guys definitely explain it and just giving me the chance to at least know your opinions and why they matter. Definitely has changed my aspect on just 1,000 Hitlers versus one good guy. A lot of that earlier is just like it definitely changed a lot. I appreciate you guys just having me. I hope all the viewers watching know that this is just all coming from a place of positive intent. Never ever wanting to hurt anybody. I'm more pro people than most people would think. So I just want to say thanks again, as it did take a lot for me just to even be on the show with you guys. And I just can't thank you guys enough for just having me and just letting me just have a platform or just be a part of something great here.
Awesome. Well, we really, really, really appreciate you coming on. Thank you so much. We appreciate you stepping out of that comfort zone. Appreciate you coming on and hanging out with us, kind of talking it out, and just kind of letting your voice be heard. That's the whole tagline of our show. So, is there anything you wanted to plug before we let you go?
Nah, I think I'm all set. I just want to say, um, thank you guys again for just having me. It's definitely great to just kind of get some reasonable conversation rather than some of the other debatable shows that are like getting like louder with Crowder, where it just becomes very arrogant or ignorant, which almost becomes very deterring to even just kind of join one of these podcasts. Um, but just knowing that you guys just allowed to be me, to be fully, transparent, and you guys, were great in just terms of listening or just even providing some feedback and letting me know how important it is in the decisions that we're talking about and how they affect my community is definitely, definitely, definitely has changed some of the character aspects and made some tweaks in how I think about things now. So I do want to thank you guys just so much for just even having me.
Yeah, man.
Yeah,
Appreciate you, bro.
absolutely.
Appreciate you for joining in, man. Thank you.
Yeah. Hope I didn't get any of the viewers upset. If
Nah.
not, man, fuck it.
All
I'm
right, Cap.
sorry, man. I'm sorry.
No worries. Thanks, Cap. Just text me sometime. We'll talk. We'll catch up afterwards. But we're gonna go do
All right.
some tidy work on our end. But really appreciate you coming on.
No worries, guys. You have a good one. And shout out to all the viewers. Everybody, good night.
See ya.
Cool,
All
cool.
right.
Yeah. Next week we have. Um, I don't want to say his name. I'm not sure if he wants to be anonymous or not. But we're going to be having a guest on to discuss gun control.
Yeah, that'll
So
definitely be an interesting one. I think I personally know a few people that would be very intrigued
yeah,
and probably have strong opinions on that particular topic.
yeah.
Uh, so
And we're still working on getting the episode about transitioning for minors.
yes, with Joseph
So
Jackson. So we're in the process of recontacting and jumping back with him. I know he has his own podcast. Looks like there was just a little scheduling hiccup there. Had somebody from out of town visiting Joseph. So just wanted to say that we're still going. The goal is to still have him on. We just have to get that rescheduled, and we'll do that. But next week we're gonna do the gun control episode. Maybe we can get him on the week after that if we don't have another one scheduled already. But also, if you're interested in coming on the show and doing exactly what Cap just did and just coming on and kind of expressing ideas and kind of talking it out with us, that's exactly what we're here for. So if you have any questions, if you have a topic you want us to discuss, that's what we're about.
Morpheus is coming back.
Okay.
I guarantee. Yes, we already in the talks about the episode. I had already mentioned him the topic. He had I don't know if you remember the religion episode. He had said something about race and politics, and we had like a go back and forth for a few about 3 or 4 minutes on that. So we're gonna do a whole podcast. We're gonna do a whole episode on that. So that is coming. Morpheus will return. Also, um, another one that's in the work. So there's another podcast on Relic Media called King's Lair. So there's two guys. It consists of four guys, but there's two guys in particular that's probably going to be coming on the show. Um, and we're going to be talking about cultural appropriation. I was watching an episode, and they just said something that I totally disagreed with. So I said, "Hey, man, come on our show and let's argue about it." And they agreed. So,
And
um,
if that happens, I think if the request for us appearing on their show comes up, that's something that we're undoubtedly going to oblige. We'll definitely go on their show as well. And obviously, we try to link back and forth to each other's shows and that episode that we appeared on, which would be nice, just a little bit of cross culture, if you will, to kind of get us on their show, and we'll go and take on theirs if they'd like us, if they want to invite us on. In the other thing being, I think Joseph Jackson said he was going to bring on somebody with them. I don't know if that was still the plan, but if so, that's more than welcome. If you guys want to come on as a duo, if we frighten you, or if you feel like you just need that steel man, or if you're just want somebody that's got your back on your side, we're more than welcome to bring you on two at a time or three at a time. It might get a little hectic, but we'll do our best to keep it civil and keep the conversation flowing. So, anything else you wanted to add before we head out of here, AAA?
yeah, and if you don't want to come on, but you know someone
Who
who you
might?
think be good, yeah, be pretty good for the show, bring them on. If you said you have a pastor and you don't like what me and Facade said about religion or said about morality or something like that, and you think your pastor is going to like tear us up, bring them on the show.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah,
Bring them on.
bring them on. Yeah, bring
All
him and
right.
the whole choir, everybody.
Yeah, bring the whole choir. When the pastor bring his whole choir. When the...
It's a wrap. It's a wrap.
All right. Well, we're gonna head out. Thanks so much for watching. Please like, subscribe. We'll see you next week.